the IWM ETF. This is the Russell 2000 small caps. So I'm going to do a general market outlook, but the move on the IWM is a big deal. I want to talk about margins, margin loans, margin calls, and we'll look at the general market here. Let's just kind of go through a couple of things. So this breakdown on the IWM is ugly, but I'm not talking about just trading the IWM. Like, this is a huge indicator I use to look at the amount of money flowing into or out of sort of risky stocks. And this down moves, it's a risk off look, but it's not risk off in the general sense. It's like the margin loans and the investment money going into the small companies is coming out. And so it's good to compare this with the big guys, which is, like the Nasdaq and the FANG stocks. So they're holding up pretty strong here, and it's kind of flattening out, which is a weird pattern to do right here, but money's going into the large stocks. It's coming out of the small stocks. And so that's a rotation into, less risky stuff, risk off, but also the FANG stocks are the concentrated group of things in this bubble that have been leading. And so further consolidation into those, it just looks like we're going closer to the top of the bubble. All right, so let's look at the S&P, which has rallied back up to the top of the channel, and it's just kind of flagging around at the top, undecided. So far, it hasn't made a big move. I still expect the move in the short term to just be coming back inside of this range here. This doesn't look like it's making like a huge break out of the top or setting up any kind of like melt up kind of structure. Like we already came down, and now we're just consolidating. Like, that's not the move that you'd want for like a melt up look on the whole market. Like, for a melt up, you would want to see a pretty good blast out of the top, and then you want to see consolidation on top, and then you can do like a melt up move. But we came on top pretty weak and fell through, and we're testing all these different support levels right now, and that's all I think we're doing on the general market, is just kind of testing these levels. But this is a big deal to see consolidation into the FANG stocks, into the big market leaders coming out of the IWMs. And IWMs is risky stocks, and there's also financials in here. So, just basically I use the IWM just to kind of get a look at margin loans that's a little bit better than the chart that if you just go look margin loans up, you don't get that good of a look. But the IWM trading kind of shows you all of the investment flows for risky stocks. And so this is cool. Not cool. I don't know. This is risky. This is bad for the market. But what this should do is it should threaten smaller stocks and not necessarily the bigger ones. And so, just as an indicator here, it would be saying like money is going to come out of risky little guys. And I have a whole list of risky little guys that I'll flip through those in a minute. But in any case, this is a big time breakdown, and we got a lot of space under here to work with as far as margin calls coming in, and the general market is gonna pull back if the IWM is like really crashing. So it's threatening a crash now, and this is just the beginning of a downtrend here, and we're breaking this support level. So this is a huge deal, and I'm calling a down move in the general market, but calling like a big down move in this chart. And I would expect an ABC wave type of a thing where you get away from, well, maybe not that aggressive, but you get away from the downtrend line, and then you rally into it and overthrow it, and then you just kind of hug it and run down. Like, this is kind of the generic move to look for if we break into this, this whole lower channel here. And I can zoom out a little bit so we can kind of see where we are. But yeah, like an ABC wave on that channel looks like kind of a likely call if we break down, like the kind of pattern you might see there. Another pattern that could be pretty likely is you just come down. Like, this is just kind of the halfway point, but these channels are pretty strong on the IWM. Just coming down and just like hanging out, and this channel is another thing that's likely. So we'll see We'll see how aggressive the down move on the IWM, can get, but it does look like it's releasing, and this does make me want to, well, take a look at some small stocks, some risky stocks, and see if there's short setups on them. All right, so let's flip through a couple other indicators. Like Nasdaq versus the S&P, you can see actually the Nasdaq is failing versus the S&P, which is weird if you're consolidating into like the FANG stocks. This should be beating the S&P. So this is an interesting combination, but it's not like way breaking down, but it's making a little down move off of the previous high. So we'll see if the FANG stocks start taking over again, or if it's really rotating into safer stuff like industrials and commodities and stuff like that. But this move hasn't really picked a direction or anything like that. And then treasuries is a huge one. Just looking at the money flows. So the treasuries haven't decided where they want to go yet. We got a little attempted breakout here, and then we got an attempted breakdown here. And now we're just like right on the channel, like trying to figure out if we're breaking up or down. And so I would say probably the huge thing that this would affect is Bitcoin. Like if treasury bonds trade to the upside, that means people are going to be coming out of Bitcoin and going into treasuries. And that's a really big threat. An up move on treasuries is a big threat to Bitcoin. Less huge to the stock market. The stock market trades more or less opposite of the dollar here, but they both bull at the same time. It's just like which one bulls harder. So if dollars start bulling hard, then that means the stock market is going to be a little bit weaker. But it hasn't been like a dollar up moves are like crashing the market or anything like that. They just kind of take turns bulling. So that's just kind of a look on the indicators. Like the treasury is a huge one, a huge indicator, because a big treasury breakout is going to be a huge threat to Bitcoin. And then I don't know if Bitcoin would be a threat to the market. Yeah, okay, so those are kind of the general indicators. We haven't had a big breakout on gold either. Like treasuries and gold together would be a big deal. Like you can see Bitcoin here is just kind of sitting at here, tighten that up. Sitting at like a support level here. So it's deciding on a big move, but it has a little bit of time to make this decision out until the end of January or something. But if we start breaking under here, like Bitcoin's in big trouble. And if we start breaking out through this downtrend line and catching bull support here, we're headed up. Although I do have like a topping area here that I don't think it would break if we get that kind of move. But I'm favoring a down move on Bitcoin now, largely because of the treasuries, and then also because of the court case coming out with Craig Wright. Now I'm saying he has a bunch of patents for the other fork, and saying like Bitcoin's not the BTC is not the real Bitcoin, and there's a potential for another fork war coming up. And yeah, so let's not get like way into crypto. I'll do another episode on that, but let's look at some of these small risky ones and see where they are. Meme stocks. So like Tesla is a big meme stock, not a small one. And it's just kind of in a triangle. It's almost doing the same move that the FANG stocks are doing. I guess that's not too surprising. But we have a little bit more structure here to look at on Tesla. But it's just in the middle of a triangle, so this thing could jump all around. This is kind of hard to predict where that would want to go in the short term. But there's a bunch of other ones that are set up breaking bull structures. Like ARK is not breaking its bull structure, it's just pulling down into the next channel, which is an interesting look. And then we have a bunch of smaller guys that they've broken like the long-term support here. Let's flip through a few of them, and they're testing like this downtrend line. And so things like Workhorse, that's getting probed by the SEC. Like I was thinking this, if we get a huge flood into the IWM starts breaking way to the upside and we get tons of margin loan coming in, stocks like Workhorse could be blowing to the upside. But the IWM completely head faked and it's heading down now and breaking down. And now it's like, oh no, like all these stocks, all the hugely margin loan dependent smaller stocks are going to be getting into big trouble. And there's not that much support here. So you can see, if we just trended down this trend line, like that's Workhorse going from like $5 to $1 over a couple of years. But you can look out below, like there's this huge channel structure with no bull support. If we have a huge sort of like a liquidation crisis or a margin call crisis, stocks like this can really make big down moves, like teleport down. And so, like this location and watching the IWM is kind of what I'm doing now. There's a couple that have not broken down out of their bull structures. Let's take a look at some. Like Go EV picked up a bullish structure and it's still kind of holding it. So that's an interesting one to take a look at, if this keeps coming down or not. Nikola, I did a whole episode on Nikola being like probably one of the most ridiculous stocks because it came out as a SPAC. Like they did a bunch of allegedly sort of fraudulent stuff, filming trucks that don't work and like having no like products or customers or supply chain, all this kind of stuff. But just on the technical, regardless of if the company is like okay or not, you don't need the company to like be in risk of going out of business to get like a margin call forcing a big down move on a stock like this. But you can see where the SPAC came in around 9 something, and that's right where we're pressing now, like right on 9, and we're right on this downtrend. And so if we break through here, this is the point where the early investors are holding the bag, and you can get a margin call and early investors dumping, and potentially this company getting in all kinds of legal trouble and getting in bankruptcy risk and stuff, and like that can snowball. And so I think there's a lot of downside risk on this stock, and you can see the channels here. I mean, a down move from 9 to somewhere in the $1 to $2 range over the next several months is not out of the question. If you get several of these effects like stacking on top of each other. But anyway, I do have puts on this, not financial advice. But just not that I think it will like teleport to the downside, but I think this stock has the potential to do that, and so I'm just set up in case it does. Those huge teleporting down moves are perfect for a put option setup. And then FUB, Arcimoto. Let's just flip through some of these a little bit faster. Like a little bit of a downtrend, breaking into a new lower channel. Not a good look. It's bear flagging. Not enough technical stuff on Rivian. Solo is breaking down into a lower channel, kind of busting its support area, although it doesn't have a very well defined support area. So you see this kind of breaking the bull structure, breaking the lower support areas, and like testing the downtrends now. It's looking a little bit sketchy. REE doesn't have a whole lot of structure to work with, but it was looking like a big risk back here to me, and now I really don't know what it's doing. So this one's interesting, I guess. Blink is still holding above a couple levels, so this one hasn't broken down yet. But it looks like it blew the bullish trend, but it hasn't gone into a big bearish trend or it's a big threat or anything yet. So that one's holding. QuantumScape. Oh, QuantumScape is coming down now. Oh, okay. Yeah, I was wondering. This one looked like a really good bullish structure, and it threw everything, and it's breaking down through support now. So, yeah, a lot of these are starting to look pretty scary. Fuel cell, not quite breaking down yet, but maybe threatening a down move. Aqua metal is just like lithium recycling, breaking through all the things. This one's looking pretty scary now all of a sudden. And where's it down? And this is a penny stock, so it's puts on something like this are tricky because the price is so low. But I mean, this one could get in big trouble. I'm not aware if they have any kind of securities investigations going on, but it seems like a lot of these really tiny lithium companies that popped up are being investigated for like fraud and things like that. And so if we start seeing a bunch of that stuff surfacing and margin loans pulling out and stuff like that, it's just like something to watch out for in the general market. And then potentially something similar happening with Bitcoin, which probably would be a bigger deal than a bunch of these little things. American Battery Metal is just looking like a bear trend, but not really doing much. Let's see. Oh, GME. I need to do like a whole episode on GME again shortly, because GME is one of the only bullish flag structures that I lost a channel line somehow, but that's okay. That'll make this look even more dramatic. So yeah, this is exactly what I've been calling for the last month, probably on GME, is to pull back into this support level where we bounced from. So this is a bullish flag structure, and so anyone, I guess, if anyone's favoring like a melt up move or a surprise up move on margin loans or anything like that, kind of the opposite of where it's threatening to move now, I think GME is in a structural spot where it could really explode to the upside. This is going to be a really interesting one to watch, because completing a really hot bull flag like this and actually getting a bullish move is, is another vertical freaking stick in the air. You'll get another flag pull, and this probably would shoot it into the thousands. And so that is a really cool look in the opposite direction of a bunch of these things. And GME is not in any kind of cash trouble or margin trouble or anything like that. Like, they have plenty of cash flow. And it is like a weird meme stock, and the whole short squeeze situation, it's like unknown how many shares are short still. Like, nobody can see it. The SEC is starting to probe a bunch of different things. Right, so AMC, this is actually weaker than I thought AMC was going to be moving. But I've been pointing out probably for a month or two that AMC has just been bear flagging. And this structure is not a bull flag. Like this one back here, if you look, is very similar to the GameStop bull flag, where you pull back to support, you go a little bit hot, come back to support, boom, right? Flag pull. Like, this is a textbook thing that I was just talking about. But this thing is not. This is bear flag, bear flag, bear flag, down. I mean, we might bear flag here, but this thing looks way ugly. And I don't know if they're in specific trouble. But anyway, that's just a meme stock that the price is a little bit high, so, general margin call pullback kind of stuff, it's definitely at risk of that. Cost is similar, kind of just bear flagging. So this is a good look at a bunch of sort of meme stocks and smaller stocks. Upstart is a pretty interesting one, because this is it's sort of like a banking meme stock. And so I think the margin loan pullback is not good for this. And so a treasury bond breakout to the upside will also be bad for this. It's sort of like a financial meme stock. So treasuries going to the upside would be pushing interest rates down, which is actually the opposite of what everyone thinks. But that's what I think is happening right now. And so, I mean, you can see this stock looking horrible. Yeah, anyway, this is an interesting one. That's in a different sector. And then the Bitcoin stocks, I'm not going to do a bunch of those in this one. Except I'll just point at Mara again, because I have mentioned I have a big short position on Mara that I put in like right in here. And this is a combination of everything that I was just saying about the margin and the meme stocks and everything like that. But also, like, Bitcoin has an entire separate situation going on. And I think Mara has exposure to both of those things at the same time. And so I just think there's a potential, if it both happens, like, Mara could be a huge down move. So similar thing, just throw a put option on there in case it does that. And yeah, so it's not like it's not a safety, insurance put. It's an aggressive, like, whatever you want to call it. Just like a speculative put. And yeah, I guess we could flip through some of the commodity type things and see how they're moving. Okay, so oil got a pretty good bounce. Oil looks weak. It looks like it may be doing like a triple top thing. Like, everyone thinks oil is going to keep going up forever to 100, 200 or something like that. But it doesn't look like that to me. It looks like it completed a 5 wave, and it's going to do a down move here. And I'm not exactly sure what it looks like, but I mean, maybe we backtest that or just do like a normal head and shoulders kind of roll over. But if we break through this neckline at 64, oil gets weak. That's a threat to the general market. And then take a look at some stuff like FCX is a copper miner. So that's holding reasonably well. I mean, it's not like exploding to the upside. That's kind of doing like a cone, weird consolidation pattern, but this is holding while other things are pulling back. So that's kind of a rotation out of small risky stuff into more commodity stuff. But they're just kind of holding, like the fangs are just kind of holding. Copper's just kind of holding. Uranium's pulling back a little bit. Yeah, so yeah, it's looking like people are kind of moving to safety a little bit, and there's risk of a few different down moves, but it doesn't necessarily look like the whole market is wanting to like crash out. Oh, Tilray, this is a different sector, and this is another one that looked like it was picking up a bull run, and it's a false break. Now it's breaking down below everything again. Yeah, so this one looks scary. And again, like once these things break their bull structures, like there's just nothing holding them up from the technical perspective. And so I could definitely see, like if we're talking about the top of the bubble, let's go. Oh, wait, there's Sins. I want to look at this one because Sins is another bull flag. I want to see what it's doing. No, not that one. That guy's kind of falling. Yeah, Sensionics. This is another bull flag. See, it came to support, went hot, came back. So this is coming into support. This is another kind of bullish technical setup that I like. But I do not like what the margin loans and everything are doing. But like if all that stuff switches, like this is a stock I would look at doing call options on or something like that. But I'm not doing that now. Even though I said I probably would, because I just don't like the other indicators lining up with it. And mRNA, yeah, okay. So anyway, that's just kind of a general look at the things, but the whole general S&P, like you can rotate inside the S&P, so like certain things can pull back, and the S&P doesn't have to necessarily do a huge down move or anything like that. But right now it does not look like it's setting up for like a melt up. It looks like it's just kind of testing this area, and we'll see. We'll just see if like some of these little things start crashing, like how the S&P responds to that. But yeah, anyway, I guess we could do, let's look at the momentum, I think, on this chart. You can see it's like slightly bullish here on both. It's just slightly above the top half on both of the momentum indicators here, the MACD and the RSI. And we're just kind of flatting out. So this is like a slight sideways and slight up, kind of boring. Like what it looks like it's doing right now is just kind of boring stuff. And that's what it looks like on the chart as well. And so similar here, slightly bullish, kind of boring. No big deal. But this is a huge deal. Now, this is a monstrous huge deal. Like you have a break into bearish territory, and then you can see the blue line is rejecting, it's in bearish territory and it's rejecting down farther into bearish territory. Like that's how you set up a pretty good down move, is a bearish move in bearish territory on the momentum indicator. So yeah, I think the IWM is in big trouble, and I think that actually puts a lot of small stocks in big trouble. And that's kind of the call. That's the call for this week, is little things getting in trouble. And yeah, the treasuries are just hanging out. I'll do a Bitcoin video, but that hasn't set up yet, but I think a Bitcoin move will come soon. But anyway, bunch of small risky stocks, especially that are floating on, you know, random rounds of investment and like SPAC entries and anything that's just IPO'd recently. All those type of companies that really don't have a solid business model or cash flow or anything like that set up. Like if money starts coming out, those companies get in big trouble, and that's the IWM is saying like, hey, that is happening. It's already happening. So, yeah, I think some things get in trouble. The market maybe pulls back a little bit, and then I think we go into the next phase where it will be more of like probably the FANG stocks and the commodities and stuff that would run up on the next leg up. And yeah, we'll just keep it updated, and that's the market outlook on the IWM margin loan situation. So happy trading.